A lot of people overcomplicate when it comes to trying to pass a challenge or just being profitable in general. It is not that complicated at all. Like, it's not. Everyone overcomplicates it. Everyone, especially those gurus online, and yeah, I know it's been 3 months since I uploaded, but we're back. I've recently passed my 5K challenge and I got a payout, so I'll be making a video on that very soon. But for today, passing not just a challenge or a funded account, but just being profitable in general, it is literally not that hard at all. The fastest way to become a good trader and become profitable is literally doing it the slow way. People try to pass challenges in weeks, in days. People try to rush the process, and that's literally, but I'm telling you, that's literally the fastest way for you to not only fail whatever account or funded challenge you're trying to pass, but you're not learning anything. You're just blowing account after account. You're not learning anything at all. I'll give you a perfect example. If people will try to pass challenges, they will fail, multiple challenges, never even see a single payout, or maybe even if they're lucky enough to see a single payout, that'll be the only payout they'll be getting, and then they'll just blow that account and start over again. It's a never-ending cycle. They will switch strategies. You probably, if you're watching right now, you probably have switched strategies before, or you're probably switching from strategy to strategy, which is costing you not only a lot of time, but a lot of effort, and overall it's not good. Like, your situation probably very shit, but that's why we're here. The most important thing in trading is taking trades and not losing. Like, people will think that the more you take, the more you win, the better. But people try to focus on winning rather than not losing. If you can focus on not losing rather than trying to win as much as possible, you'll be ahead of way many people. You'll be way ahead, because a lot of people, they focus on winnings rather than trying not to lose. Because if you try not to lose, then you're gonna win anyway. You know what I mean? And I know this is a bit hard to think about. Basically, if you can just, whatever strategy you're using, if you can just find which trades are your losing trades, why you're losing those trades, and find patterns, similar patterns on why those trades are losers, all you have to do is simply cut them out. So if you notice that 90% of all your trades that you've taken before have been or they've lost because you've noticed a pattern where they've lost during Asia session, or maybe they've lost during news, or it could be anything. It could be like, maybe it was a bullish candle, or whatever, bullish engulfing candle. I don't know. Just you find a pattern amongst most of your losses. You will notice it when you start journaling your trades, and that's the problem. Most people don't journal their trades at all because they're too lazy. They're trying to get it. They're trying to get to the money very quick. You're trying to get that payout. You're just trying to rush the process, which is gonna take you even longer. How are you expecting to win and make money when you don't even know your strategy? You don't even know how many losses you've taken. You don't even know. You don't know nothing about your strategy because you have not back tested it. You don't have any data to prove it. You have nothing at all. So if you're not journaling your trades, you haven't back tested your strategy, how are you gonna find out the losses? And bro, I'm telling you, literally, the moment I found my losing trades, I've found patterns in my losing trades and cut them out, that will boost your win rate like it's like on steroids, literally. The moment you cut out your losing trades, you find out why they're losing, you cut them out, there's nothing else to lose. Like, obviously you will have losses, and those are like normal losses, because let's be honest, every strategy is you're gonna have some losses anyway. It's inevitable. But instead of having 10 losses in a month, you might only have 1 or 2. And literally, I've done that. I've checked it on my own strategy, where I've had like multiple losses. I think like 7 in a month. I went back tested it. I've seen the journals, and I've seen a common pattern where all my losing trades were during London session. None of my losing trades were in Tokyo. So I've noticed that, and I've decided, alright, I'm going to go back and back test my strategy, but this time I'm going to avoid trading during London session and guess what? Your win rate just goes up. It's crazy. The win rate just went up like crazy. Only had 2 losses when I backtested this strategy again during that 1 month period. Only had 2 losses during that month compared to like 7 before. So you went from 7 losses to 2 losses. But you wouldn't know that if you don't journal your trades and you don't backtest your strategy. Now these are 2 things. You've heard a lot of people say that. You've heard many gurus say that you have to like backtest. You have to actually journal your trades. But it's there for a reason. You don't even have to have a fancy journal. Like any Microsoft Excel or Google spreadsheet is literally fine. You just need to write down what time frame, what confluence, blah blah blah. Screenshot, maybe add a screenshot in there, just to see common patterns in your losing trades. Now going back to cutting your losing trades, once you find the reason as to why your trades are losing, let's say you find a common pattern, you can cut it off. You take that strategy, your strategy, you backtest it for 1 or 2 months, and record it on a separate spreadsheet or separate Microsoft Excel. Record your data. You backtest for like 1 or 2 months, and then see the difference. Once you find the patterns that in those losing trades. Apply that to the backtesting and see if that makes a difference. And if it does, there you go. You've cut out most of your losses. And if you cannot lose, then you're simply going to win. And Waqar Awesome said it the best: a restricted trader is a profitable trader. And that is very true. Once I've started restricting my strategy, which a lot of people are afraid to do, especially those that are starting out, they try to take as many trades as they can. They try to trade every single session. They think the more they trade, the better, or the more time they invest into the charts, the more the more money you're going to make. The reality of trading is the less time you spend on the charts, the more money I make, literally. The moment I started moving away from the charts more, the more profitable I became, the less losses I got, and the more, because your mindset is going to be better, your psychology is going to be better because you're trading less, you're exposing yourself less. But how are you going to do that? If you're not backtested your strategy, you don't know exactly when your setup occurs. For me, I've backtested my strategy. I found out exactly what times do I usually see my setup, and during what sessions. So what I've done, I've collected data, and then I found the average. And on average, I can see that, let's say if I'm trading gold, I know that most of my trades for gold during Asia session is in the beginning of Asia session, or during the end of Asia session. There's the gap in between, in the middle of Asia session, there's nothing there. There's no setups. Even if there are setups, they're mostly losing setups. So I've noticed that. So I've cut out that time. So I trade from, let's say this time to this time, and then from that time to that time. I have a specific time windows when I trade. Anything out of that time windows, I don't care what the market is doing. I don't care. I can't take any trade. These are part of my rules. Once I've implemented these restrictions, my psychology became better. I've started winning more, and it's overall just better. It's much better once you restrict your strategy. You find your best, we find out when your setup occurs, and you become literally more profitable. It's just literally as simple as that. The more you restrict your strategy, you're gonna think that restricting your strategy is, means less trades, and less trades means less winnings. But if you have multiple pairs, like me, I trade mainly three things. So I trade gold, GU, and AU, and I don't trade them all at the same time. So GU, I only trade GU during London. I trade AU only during Tokyo, and for gold, it's more flexible. I trade gold during Asia and during Tokyo and during London, so it's a bit more flexible. But I have 3 pairs where I can take A+ setups on all 3 throughout the week. So if one pair is not giving me any setups, I can move on to the next pair. I know, for my back test, I know that there will be at least one setup per day across those 3 pairs. So if it's not GU, there will be a setup in AU. If it's not AU, there'll be at least one setup in gold. There's every single day is at least one setup for me. And how do you know that? Backtest. You backtest your strategy, you journal, you find out that there's at least one trade or one setup every single day. So I know there's a higher probability setup every single day throughout the week, and I don't have to worry that I'm going to miss my setup because I know that it's going to occur. Even let's say you trade only one pair and you restrict your strategy to a point where you started seeing less valid setups, but it's fine. You have a high win rate now because you've restricted your strategy to a point where you're winning more than you're losing. Like you have, let's say, an 80 or 90% win rate, or maybe it's like 70, 80, 90, and up. You restrict your strategy to the point where you have a higher win rate, which is perfect. Of course, you're going to see less valid trades or less valid setups to take, but you now have a higher win rate. But people will be like, well, that means I'm going to trade less or make less money. But again, you have a high win rate, which means you can now risk double what you've been risking before. So if you risk 1%, you can risk 2% per trade. You've increased your win rate to the point where your winning is by far, more than you're taking A+ setups here. You're not taking your usual average looking setups. So if per week you might only see 2 setups per week, compared to, let's say, previously you've been trading and you find out that on average you take 7-10 trades a week, and after restricting it you only take 1 or 2 setups a week. Like, yes, you're making less money, but you're also losing less. That makes sense. But now that you're taking the best setups throughout the week, A+ setups, you're gonna feel better. Because you're trading less, you're less on the screens. You can just set up your alarms and just leave it, and come back to when your setup starts appearing, or once your alarms get triggered. Like you're just more calm. Your psychology is gonna get better. Your win rate is high, so you're gonna win more than you lose, and winning obviously feels good. As a trader, you have to be not emotional to winnings or losses, but we're human. So when you start seeing, if you win more, you start seeing a lot of wins, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more confident with your trades. Your psychology is gonna be a bit better. But you also get the ability to risk double, because now you know that this is a high probability trade. It's like you have a 80 or 90% win rate, whatever high win rate that you've achieved after restricting your strategy. So you can risk more, and by risking more, you actually get to make more. If on average, let's say your average RR is 2, so you make 2% per trade, and 2 setups per week, so that's 4%. But because let's say if you risk 1% per trade and now you risk 2%, you increase your risk or double your risk. You're making 8% per week now. But let's go back to, let's say, your old strategy, the unrestricted strategy, where you risk 1%, but you take 7 trades a week. So let's say you take one trade, hits 1 to 2, another trade's a break even, another trade, another break even, one loss, another break even, maybe another win. So altogether, yes, you've taken more trades, but how much you have left after, at the end of the week? You're probably around break even at this point, maybe even like 1 or 2% up. But when you restrict your strategy, you trade less. You can double your risk on those like A+ setups. Instead of making 2% before, now you're making 8% per week and only taking 2 trades the whole week. What more do you want? And this is perfect for passing challenges, because you can just go aggressive with the challenges, which I don't recommend. But if you have a high win rate, you can just go very aggressive with the challenges. Get a cheap challenge where losing that challenge won't affect you in any way. Let's say like a 5k account, $50. Let's say $50 is not that much to you. Buy a 5k account. Instead of risking 1%, you risk 2 or 3% per trade. Actually, not 3%, 2% per trade. or 2 or 3% per trade. Let's just say that you got very aggressive with your trades, and on average, let's say you get 1 to 2 or like 2%, so there'll be 6% per trade, and you have 2 setups per week. That's 6 and another 6, 12%. That's enough to pass phase 1, and the next week you probably pass phase 2. It's doing it the slow way is always faster, no matter what. Like, no matter what you're doing in trading, the slow way, the hard way is always going to be faster to achieving to what you want than trying to pass as fast as possible. Because trust me, I've tried passing challenges as fast as possible. I've tried rushing the process. I've tried, blowing accounts, trying to just wiggle my way through being profitable. It never worked. Never, bro. And even if I did get lucky with one setup or one strategy where I just try to rush, it always come back to you eventually. Because if you can't be consistent with your profits, you're gonna either blow that account or lose that final challenge. So it's very important that you get consistent gains, throughout a long period of time. But how are you gonna do that if you don't journal, you don't backtest, and most importantly, you don't restrict your strategy? Those 3 things, bro, is gonna help you a lot. Restrict your strategy to the point where you are taking best A+ setups, very good setups, and find why you're losing. You can either backtest this or just see your journals if you've been journaling, and if you're not journaling, then you must journal your trades. Backtest, find why you're losing, find any commonalities between those losses, cut them out, backtest again, and just keep doing that until you start refining your strategy to a point where it becomes a bit more restricted. Maybe restrict the timings, trade less, maybe just trade 1 session, 1 pair, whatever. Experiment, put some time in there. And lastly, backtest your strategy. You have to backtest your strategy, because if you know, bro, backtesting is gonna be the best teacher in the markets. When it comes to the markets, backtesting is the best teacher. Like, no course, no whatever indicator is gonna help you become profitable as much as backtesting does. The moment I started backtesting more instead of watching videos on how to become profitable, or even just watching any course, I became much more profitable, because now you're backtesting, you're seeing the markets, you're seeing how it goes, you're seeing how your strategy works. You can find commonalities, you can add notes, what works and what doesn't. You can see patterns. It becomes so much easier. But if you literally don't backtest, then you're not gonna know. And backtesting helps you become a better trader in general, because the market is the best teacher when it comes to trading Forex or whatever you're trading. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I am making more videos. It's coming up. I'm gonna make more like day in a life vlogs type of things, and I got more stuff coming up, so don't worry. We are back. I know it's been 3 months, but we are back. I'm gonna also release another video on my funded account that I received and the payout that I got, and just kind of going to my strategy. Maybe I'll also teach. I might release a video on how I trade personally. So if you want that, comment down as well. And yeah, any other ideas, comment down. I'll be happy to make another video on whatever trading questions that you guys have. And yeah, just focus on those 3 things that I mentioned, and you will become much more profitable.